Slight interruption. Bus 331 has just arrived. Please allow those students into your classrooms without a tardy. Thank you.
All right, so AS has how many electrons? Has 5. BR has how many? 7. So we get 5. We get 35 for a grand total of 40. So in your structure, you have to have 40 electrons. Everybody remembers how to do that, right? By the way, your test is Thursday. Quiz is tomorrow. So who's my central atom? AS. How many BRs am I drawing around it? 5. Okay. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, including Miss Wall can't count after being on break for 5 days. All right, there's 40. Now, tell me the geometry. Yep. Triangular bipyramidal. How do we know that it's triangular bipyramidal for those people who are absent? It's got 5 what? It's got 5 bromines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bromines. And it has what else? Got something else you got to know besides there are 5 bromines. Yep. It's got 5 atoms on the central atom, 5 bromines on the central atom, and no lone pairs. 0 lone pairs.
Wait, we have to know that?
Yes, my dear.
Or do we just name the structure?
You have to be able to tell me that it's 5 and 0 to know the geometry. That's how you determine the geometry. There are 5 atoms, no lone pairs. Okay?
But do we have to write that?
No. You just have to know that. For example, if you have something that has how are they different? Exactly. Okay, so that's why I'm saying you have to be able to tell who has lone pairs and who doesn't, because this geometry and that geometry are not the same. I drew them the same, but they're not the same geometry. Okay, so this geometry would be how many atoms? 2, and how many lone pairs? 2. This one has how many atoms? 2, but how many lone pairs on the central atom? 0. So the top geometry is what? The top one up here is what? That's bent. Has lone pairs. This one had no lone pairs, so it's linear. Okay? I don't expect you to tell me 2 and 2 or 2 and 0. You just have to recognize them and tell me that one's bent and that one's linear. Okay? That's why I'm asking you, how do you know that this is triangular bipyramidal? Most of you can say, oh, it has 5. It's triangular bipyramidal. All right? But in something like this, you have to be able to tell me about the lone pairs. All right? So, out of the next 2, who would you have thought was the easiest then? CI4 would have probably been the next easiest. All right, CI4. C had 1. I had 4. How many electrons on C? 4. How many on I? 7. 4. 28. 32. Who's the central atom? C. How many I's do we have? 4. Okay. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 26, 30, 32. Okay? So, again, how many I's do you have on the central atom? How many lone pairs do you have? 4 and 0 makes us what geometry? Tetrahedral. Okay? Everybody good with those so far? And notice I haven't erased, so we can come back and do polar and nonpolar. Yeah. Yes, question? Are we okay with the drawings and the geometries? Okay, so the last one we have was what? H2CS? Okay. So H, C, and S. We had 2 H's, 1 C, and 1 S. So how many electrons in H's outer shell? And C's outer shell? And then S's outer shell. So we get 2, we get 4, we get 6 for a grand total of 12 electrons. Who's my central atom? Okay, yep. Because H is never central. If you look up C and S, who's farther left? That's why C is the central atom. H is never the central atom because H only gets how many electrons on it? 2. Okay, so I draw 2 H's and 1 S. You said what? That's right. Also, H has 2 at the bottom, so it's also not going to be central for that reason. All right, so 2, 4. Now, once I draw those 2 lines on H, does H get anything else? No, it's done. H gets nothing else after it gets those lines.
Pardon the interruption. Please allow the students from bus 201. They're just arriving. Please
Did any buses get here on time today? Did either rest of y'all ride a bus that came on time?
No.
Okay. I was just curious. So all the rest of y'all were car riders or walked, other than Jada. Okay. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So I drew in 12 electrons. Once I draw in my 12, you already said H was okay. So now you're checking the C and the S. Do both C and S have what magical number? Do both C and S have 8? As soon as you say no, now you have to do that thing with the multiple bonds. So what are we going to do to help C have its magical number of 8? You got to erase some electrons here and put them where? In between, because the only place we can erase those 2 to be any good is in the middle. Because if I erase them from here and I put them there, C has 8, but S now only has how many? 6. So when I erase them, I got to put them in the middle to help them out. Now, do I still have 12?
Yes.
Yes. Does C have 8?
Yes.
2, 4, 6, 8. Does S have 8?
Yes.
2, 4, 6, 8. Yes. Now, when I count my electrons on C, or not my electrons, my atoms, how many atoms are on the C?
3.
3. How many lone pairs are on the C? 0. Because 0 looks terrible. All right, because when I look, I have lone pairs, but are they on the C? No. So what geometry am I if I have 3 and no lone pairs? Triangular planar.
Can we do that, or do we have to rectangular planar?
Do what now?
Like, do just the triangle?
Sure. I told you Tuesday you could abbreviate the triangle. I mean, you can't write triangle in P, but you can write the triangle to represent the triangular. Okay? Because you can't write P because there's pyramidal. What?
You know what I mean?
As long as it's close, I'm not going to mark it wrong. If all you got is T and the rest of it is like Tyrannosaurus, no, I'm not going to count that. It's tetrahedral. All right? But if you're off a vowel or a consonant and it's really close, no, I'm not going to mark that wrong. Okay? Questions. Now, you had to tell if all 3 are more polar or nonpolar. Okay? So when you look at this, what were the 2 rules? Okay, all the dipoles were equal, which meant the same bonds. And number 2, equal angles, which meant no lone pairs. And the lone pairs were on the central atom. Okay, so in order for the dipoles to be equal, all 3 of these bonds had to be the same. So when you look at all three of these bonds, are they between the same elements on each bond? No. You have carbon and hydrogen here, carbon and hydrogen here, but this one is what? Carbon and sulfur. So when you subtract your electronegativities, are you going to get the same number on all three of these bonds? As soon as you say no there, what does that tell you about that bond? It's polar. Remember, if you get a yes on both of those, it's nonpolar. Okay? But since number one is wrong, it makes it polar. Now, doing the same thing on the next two. Are all of these bonds the same? So number one was a yes. Number two, are all the angles equal? Meaning there's no lone pairs on the central atom. Are there any lone pairs there? So if both of them are true, what does that make this molecule? It makes it nonpolar. All right, and if we go back to the last one, what can you tell me about all of those bonds? They're all the same. And number two, any lone pairs on AS? Then it's what? It's nonpolar. Questions? Now, being able to do that is your quiz tomorrow. I think there's 6 of them.
You have one.
Yes.
Okay, so on the homework.
Get ready to pull it up.
Okay, I guess we can ask it.
You want me to pull it up and then you ask your question?
Sure.
Okay. And I'm not even going to check it for those of you who didn't bother to do it. The only person that hurts is y'all on the quiz tomorrow. Hopefully, though, you will rebound and be in good shape. There is no partial credit tomorrow. It is either correct or it's not.
But like $5.06.
You're going to take the $5 and still mark them wrong. I told you I could be bought. I'm just not cheap.
You said 1,000.
I said 5,000.
No, you said 500.
I said 5,000, and you can have any grade you want.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I would choose a high A if I were you, but you can have any grade you want. You can't get anything for 500. No, I assume for 5,000 you want the semester. I will give you anything, but I told you I can be bought, Jada. I'm just not cheap. You play basketball? That sort of sucks.
Whatever, she can't get it.
Well, I would agree with that too. All right, so these are in columns based on your review or your worksheet. Yes, this is the homework. All right. So if you look at the front, because these are done in the order they appear on the homework sheet. The very left column tells you the bond type. The middle tells you the Lewis structure and the geometry. And the far right tells you the bond or the molecule type. Now, notice that I put exception there under the one that says nonpolar, because I know most of you were probably going to miss that, because you just looked at pH 3 and you said, oh, there's a lone pair. Okay? Now, a lot of you probably missed that piece because out to the side when we were talking about that, I told you that if you got 0 when you subtract, 2.1 minus 2.1 equals 0, you cannot be polar if you get 0. Okay, and I know that's an itty bitty little rule, but in order to be to be polar, the lone pairs, you got to have at least a 0.1. Okay, you can't be a 0. When you subtract, if you get 0, you are nonpolar. Your dipoles can't cancel if you're a 0. You got to have something. And there's 2 of them on this worksheet. I will tell you, I generally am not picky that way. I'm not going to hunt for those exceptions on quizzes or tests.
I find that very
Glitch.
Wait, okay, so linear and triangular, planar ones don't have the 2 dots, and the pyramidal and bent do.
Linear and planar do not have lone pairs. That's correct. Bent and pyramidal do. That is correct.
That makes more sense now. I guess.
All right, you ready for me to move to the next 3?
Not really.
Okay then. And again, this is essentially your quiz for tomorrow. Being able to do this. I'm going to be suicidal, aren't
I mean,
I'm good with the warm-up.
I? The only thing that's not on the quiz is the left column. Because we've already taken the quiz on that. So I'm not planning on doing that left column. The test is Thursday. And the good news is, once we take the test on Thursday, we'll go back to math in about a week and a half. Only for about a week and a half, Lolly. About a week and a half, and then there will be no more math centered. We'll have small sections of math, like for a day. It'll be intermingled for the rest of the semester.
Hard math or like?
Most of you guys will like the math. I'm thinking even Lolly might like.
I hate math.
You might like this.
This is different.
Math is stupid regardless.
You might like this.
3.
The gas laws, well, there is one piece of the gas law you won't like. But
As long as you shove it, man. Honestly,
what math class are you in now?
I had last semester. I had math. I think I had like a 60 something in that class for the whole semester, and then my exam brought it like an 80. So,
What class are you, what math did you take?
math too.
Math 2. Okay. And now you're in math 3?
I'm gonna take it next.
Okay.
I hate math because it's that's the only teacher I want.
Wait, do we have to just make sure you don't get a trivalent?
like flat slides.
Oh, I don't understand.
I cried in that class.
I can't afford not to understand.
We had the book and he was like, do numbers 1 on the board. And I started crying. My mom was like, what's wrong? And I was like, and I started crying about it. And I was like, I don't know.
All right. Can I turn the page?
No.
Yes?
No.
Look, you're just copying stuff. I'm not waiting on you to copy.
Wait. Okay.
Oh, wait, can we go back to like the last ones, because I forgot to check the stuff, the geometry or something.
Here you go.
Okay, can I go back to the other one?
You didn't check the geometries there either?
Yeah, I forgot they were a thing. Okay,
I can't really
okay, I'm
read.
good now.
I can't see.
I can't read.
You can't read what?
I just can't.
I said I can't really read what that says.
I tried to write neatly.
Well,
You know,
I must be hard.
you know what was great?
What?
If I was rich,
It would be great if we were all rich and we didn't have to go
I
to
should
school.
pay you off. Dude, I should pay you off instead of taking your class. Like, that just sounds so great to me. I'd do it. 100%. I would do it.
28 years, never been paid off.
Well, that's.
Don't think it's gonna happen before I'm retired.
I don't know, man. You might be surprised.
can we go
I
over?
mean, not that I have.
Yes, dear. We'll go over any questions in a second.
Okay, let me start with, I won't remember.
I mean, yeah, I got this one. Does it have to look like that one for the last one?
No, I just drew it in the triangular planar shape because I knew what it was.
I don't.
I know.
Do you have fun with it?
I have a perk. I don't get paid very well, so.
Then why would you, if you don't get paid, why would you like take extra steps just to make us go crazy?
It's part of the job.
Wait, what does it have?
That's
A
extra
That's the
work.
way it influence our lives in some.
I just put the covalent there. Doesn't have to be there. Here.
I mean, I'm so.
There.
Thank you.
Does that make you feel better?
Yes.
I mean, no, but I just thought I did it wrong.
No, I just accidentally wrote the seat there.
No.
Have it.
No, I don't feel bad.
The good news is we have 4 weeks till break, and then we'll have about a week and a half, and it'll be exam time.
That makes you
Are you
feel
serious?
like-
Honestly,
Y'all are getting so close to being done.
I just
The
really.
bad news is you're getting closer to math class.
I'm not totally hating that.
I'm just talking to Almija and Lolly.
I'm just gonna have math and English at the same time. God is like.
See, I'd be more distraught about taking English.
I'm actually, you said, yeah, let's do
I would stick my head in a bowl of freezing cold water and take English. Well, you have to have no dots on it. Only the next 6 electrons. That's one of the 2 exceptions I told you I had to know. Hydrogen and boron.
Wait, what were the exceptions?
Hydrogen and boron.
What about?
Hydrogen only gets 2 electrons and boron only
I
gets 6.
have questions.
Those are the only 2 you have to know.
Boron gets 6.
Yeah, it was on the worksheet I did on Tuesday.
Oh, I didn't do that. The one that was like, I have questions about.
I forgot about this.
That was the other exception I told you.
Oh, really? Because I kind of guessed all this. Hey, what?
Sulfur has to have 8. So if it's short electrons, you have to make sulfur have 8. The only 2 that are going to be exceptions are going to be boron, which will only have 6, and then hydrogen will only have 2. Everybody else, unless it's an expanded octet that has more, everybody else will have 8. All right, so which ones do we have questions about?
Okay,
Oh, by the way, this is one that you got 3.0 minus 3.0 equals 0. It was an exception.
can we go back one
Yeah.
slide?
Yep.
I have 2 questions.
Just fine. Give me one of them.
For SO3,
SO3. Yeah. Yeah.
now what makes it plain?
Okay. So when you look at it, were you okay with the drawing? Did you draw it right? Yes or no? Do I need to draw it?
I drew it correct.
Okay, so you got 24 electrons, you drew it, you got a double bond. Yes, no?
Yes.
Karina? No. So we need to backtrack for Karina and draw it. All right, so we got 24 electrons. S is in the middle. We have 3 oxygens, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. So we draw on 24 electrons. All the O's have 8. Sulfur has how many?
I know what I did.
Okay, so I'm going to take 2 off, and I'm going to put it there so everybody has 8. Now, the reason it's planar, when I look at it, and this is why I was telling Caroline when we started the opening, and she's like, do I have to write that down? The answer is no, you don't have to write it down, but you have to think it in your head. How many O's do I have? How many lone pairs are on my S? 0. I have no lone pairs, so I'm a 3 and 0. 3 and 0 is what geometry? Triangular planar. Because 3 and 1 lone pair is triangular pyramidal. That's why I wrote it down in the opening, because I want you to make the connection that 3 and 0 is triangular planar, but 3 and 1 is triangular pyramidal. Does that make sense? Yes, no?
Yes.
Because, and I'm just going to alter this for a minute, if this had 2 dots here, that would be triangular pyramidal. But because this doesn't have dots and that has a double bond and it's 3 and no lone pairs, that makes it planar. Because it's 3 O's, no lone pairs on the central atom. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. What was the other question?
Okay, so.
Hold on, Lolly.
I just want to go back.
Take the vest. All right, what's the other question?
It's a non-polar molecule.
It is nonpolar because it has how many atoms? It has how many atoms?
I'm gonna see.
It is. Are all those the same?
Yes, but so here's the.
Does the double bond make a difference is what you're asking.
Yeah.
Would it make a difference when we subtracted the electronegativities? Would we factor in the double bond when we subtract?
I'm gonna say no.
That's right. So they're all the same bonds.
Okay.
So all the bonds are the same. Are there any lone pairs on the central atom? All right, so you had a check there for all the bonds are the same, and you had no lone pairs. So if all the bonds are the same and there are no lone pairs, what kind of molecule is it? It's nonpolar because you had 1 and 2 with a check mark. So the double bond does not impact the bonds because it wouldn't affect subtracting the electronegativities. Make sense?
Yes.
Can you go to the last one?
Yep.
And after that, can we do CO2?
CO2?
I don't
Sure.
think you have to do the last one just to finish checking. Okay, I'm good.
Do I need to draw CO2 or just explain something about it? Draw it. All right. So CO2, when you add up the electrons, C has 1, O has 2, times 4 electrons, times 6 electrons. So you get 4, you get 12 for a grand total of 16 electrons. Okay? So C, O, O, you can do 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. And then you can take 2 off here, 2 off here, so that everybody has 8. You with me on that, or did I go too fast? You're blinking at me. Let me go back. Okay. So can we agree that not everybody has 8? We got 8 on C. How many on O?
Yeah, Steve.
How many on O?
I didn't count. Well, I mean, I counted.
2, 4, 6. So O does not have 8.
That makes sense now.
Okay. So I'm going to move 2 here. And 2, 4, 6. So I'm going to take 2 there and put them there. Now, that's not the only way to draw this. C, let's see if you had this. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Okay? So this time, 8, 8, 4. Take 2 off. That gets me to 6. Take 2 off. That gets me to 8. Do you have it drawn that way?
No.
Okay. What are these names? What do we call these? Something with a what? Yeah? Something with an R, right?
Resonance.
That's right. These are called resonance forms.
They have to know that.
Yes, you got to know that.
Wait,
I
what
think
is
it's
residence?
residence.
Resonance forms.
Oh, no.
Wait, what about it though? They have the double.
When you can draw a molecule 2 different ways. Okay? Both of these forms exist in nature. One exists more than the other one, but they both exist. Okay? Now, does it change their geometry? You're right, Javante. The answer is no. All right. When you look at the C, how many O's are coming off the C? So 2. How many lone pairs on the C? 2 and 0. If you look here, how many O's are coming off the C? How many lone pairs? So the geometry is still 2 and 0. What's 2 and 0? Still linear. So both of them are linear. It will not change the geometry. Will it change whether it's polar or non-polar?
Yes. No.
All right, let's see. Are the bonds the same?
Yes.
Are there any lone pairs?
No.
So what does that make it? Okay. Are the bonds the same?
Yeah.
For the purposes, remember, when I ask are the bonds the same, we're talking about for the purposes of subtracting the electronegativities. If I subtract C and O, and I subtract C and O using the electronegativity, will I get the same number?
Yes.
So are the bonds the same?
Yes.
Do I have any lone pairs? So is it polar or nonpolar? It's a resonance form. Okay? So it wouldn't matter how you drew it. I'd accept both answers on the test. If I drew that on the quiz tomorrow for you, I'd accept both answers on the quiz. Okay? You will not see CO2. What else on the homework was bothering you? Or still looks weird that you might see? Everything looks weird.
Okay. The only thing that threw me off when I was doing it, because I did it at the beginning. There's no way I was going to do it. So I did it at the beginning, and I didn't really understand it for the class. And so we were doing the geometry, I couldn't figure it out. So just to the only thing that's going to give me like a linear in this bit, I got it. Don't worry about it. I'll figure it out. I'm going to okay. I'll figure it out. Just all of that, I got it. I'll figure it out. Because I don't know how to ask my question.
Thank God. I'm lost.
I don't know how to ask your question. Dang. Let me have a brain for a minute. I hate it.
What? You see what's on that board? We just helped.
All right. I'm going to give you a couple. I'm not giving you many because we ain't got a lot of time. We're behind. Been on homework forever and a day. Well, that would be fabulous.
Okay, so it's all.
Yeah.
I'm kind of confused. I don't remember if you said it is short answer questions or not. On at the bottom.
Yeah, I said no. I said just do the chart.
I was like so confused.
Yeah, no.
It gets back.
I hate groups. Groups are so long. It makes me cry. I can't handle it.
All right. I'm only giving you 4 because we're not spending forever on this. All right. I want you to draw those 4. All right. You have a mix of single, double, and triple bonds.
Okay.
You do not know which is which. And I purposefully picked things that were not obvious to you in looking at what I stuck up there. Okay, CI4, ASPR5 are obvious in the drawings. Okay? And I did not do that for this practice.
Great job.
Huh? Great job? Trying to be helpful.
What do you do? Like, I don't think it's on this practice, this one. But if you have two elements that, like, say you had F and CL,
Yeah,
how would you choose which one?
because they're
I don't
just
know how
side
to
by.
answer my question.
Because if it's just two elements, just fluorine and Cl, you just put them side by side, like on last night's homework.
So what do you do if there's like two of each?
You wouldn't have two of each, because it couldn't make a molecule of two of each. You have to have something else as a central atom.
So is there ever a thing where you have to pick which one in the
In their same
column?
group, no, you'd have something else outside of the group. Yes. Does that make sense? Okay. Well, question, how many times you get started over here? You okay with it? It's time to get started, so we're stuck, need help?
Can you come check this?
Sure.
Sure.
Good, good. I like both of those.
Oh.
SPR is good. It's geometry and polygon. Right, now. So you put in 10 electrons, H is done, and C has 24. So that's the thing that's gotta go through your head tomorrow, right? Count. C has 2, and N, C has 4. C has 8. So if you move things around, you'll see has 8. So
Yeah.
C has how many? So you have me. Yes. Geometry. Yes. Move again, let's move to 1. And as it's 2, this one has how many?
8.
This has how many? And see what you got going on over here. Good. 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 The only thing this needs is. How you looking right there? Okay. This has 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So you're gonna have 6. You're wrong group. You only have 4. That kind of stuff will sink you quick. Just go back and react. Yes. And then take out some more. Really? You're gonna ask her? I'm standing right here. Go right ahead. I'm not answering. It's fine. Go right ahead. Ask her. She was recalculating it at, but it's fine. Okay, now, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. This one has 8. This one has how many? So you got help in that. So it's your help in that.
It's only part. So like.
Yes. Now, this one has 20. He's only got 16 currently.
Oh, that's computer.
Hey.
Yes. Now you use geometry and pull up.
Wait, Miss Hall, you can't.
That's good, that's good, that's good. This one has 18 drawn in, but that only has 2, 4, 6. It's gotta have 8. Okay? Yes, everybody has to have 8. The only two that will not have 8 are hydrogen and boron. Those are the only two exceptions I've taught you. So you gotta count everybody. 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6. Can't have 6, gotta have 8, gotta help them. So help me. Somehow, some way, help me. Yep, exactly. So make sure those other dots are fully erased so I can tell tomorrow on the quiz that they're not there. Now, while I'm working with Jada here, when you erase dots and you move dots, do not lightly erase thinking, oh, Miss won't think I erased those, or will she think they're still there? I don't erase them fully. If I can't tell tomorrow, it's what? It's wrong. I'm not going to guess. Okay? So, no, it's wrong. So make sure they're fully erased and you move those dots.
So there's no A and D or B and C and stuff?
No, they're stupid computer. Let me move it again.
Excellent.
That computer's.
Go type 10659 and hit enter. 10659. Thank you. All right, same thing here. Take out those double bonds. Let's put in 20 again, and then let's do check. See who has 8. All right, put in the single bonds. Why? You need to log into the smartphone?
No, I just.
I like how we're the mathematical ones that remember this.
Remember, I was like,
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Okay. So you've got 16 so far. Okay, 18.
Oh, I thought it counted like 1, 2.
3, 4. Okay, now check, see if everybody has 8.
Now I'm saying. Honestly, I would say. You just want.
Yes, then it's done. We don't put in any double bonds. Okay, now, up here, H never has dots. Ever.
Yeah.
There's the dots off H. Once you draw a line on H, it's finished. So those dots have to go on either N or C.
Okay.
Listen.
Good luck with that.
No, you'll never get 8. We'll only get that single line. That's one of the exceptions. That line is what you dots to get, that's it.
All that I did was draw with the lady. They didn't make me do study tests. They didn't make me do
I know.
Okay, so it's got its 2, it's done. So you're checking to see if C and N have 8.
I just want to follow the thing.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. First of all, you have 12, 18. So take out 2. Okay. C has how many?
They need to like the whole.
And N has how many?
It's be slow fast.
So neither of them have 8. So you gotta check it. Double line,
I was going to say it's because.
put in a double line, so somebody's gotta be erased.
I use that too. I stayed up at night too.
Oh, I do that.
Has she never heard of
So we get an extra electron, erase at least one.
Yes. Really good time.
Now you got that. You got how many on C? 2, 4, 6. Because that's gone, right?
I was stupid.
Oh, yeah. And that double bond. Okay? You have to erase as you drew in. You've got to have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. You can only keep 10 electrons. Now, this has 2, 4, 6. This has 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay? Now, C only has 6. You've got to help C have 8. So you got to move this or this. Wait. Nope, because I don't put it on C. So C will have 4, but N won't have. We'll keep this out. So move it in the middle. And then erase from here. Alright, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There's 10. Okay, now do the geometries on this board. Alright.
I can't do this.
Wait, will you check mine as well?
I'm getting ready to put them up here. We're a lot further behind than I thought we'd be.
That means our test will be till
No, your test will be Thursday.
Did you see?
Sorry, but I immediately forgot this stuff. Hey, remember that test? No, but I'm remembering that. No. I can end for signing into something that you know is. You probably should have done. Oh, it's a hint.
All right, it recovered everything but the questions. Fabulous. All right, so the first one I remember was what, HCN?
Yeah.
So HCN had 10 electrons when you added it up. So you should have H with a C, triple bonded to an N, and a single dot. Now, it does not have to be in a line. It can be in an L shape. You need a triple bond with 2 dots on end. The geometry will be linear, and it will be polar. It will be polar because when you look at this, what can you tell me about this bond and this bond right there? They're different. As soon as you can tell me those 2 bonds are different, that's what tells you that's polar, okay? Now, what was the next one? SBR2. All right, so SBR has 20 electrons. So when you draw in your 20 electrons, everybody has how many? 8. Everybody had 8. So did you need to move any electrons this time? No. So this time you had 2 and 2. So it was bent. It did have bonds that were identical. SBR, SBR. What did you have on S? You had the lone pairs. So this time it was polar because of the lone pairs.
Okay, question.
Yes.
If we can say that it's bent or the triangular pyramidal, then we can automatically just say that it's polar, right?
Assuming it's not an exception. I would always recommend that you check the electronegativity to make sure it's not 0. But unless I've just decided to have a mean streak and put an exception in there, yes, you can.
Did you wait? Okay. So if it is nonpolar because of the exception and we don't realize that, is it completely wrong? Oh my God! Wait. Okay.
So why not?
I haven't done that to y'all.
So we
All right.
have to subtract it every time?
I haven't done that to y'all. Chill. All right, what's the next question? I would only do it to Caroline just to get her panties in a wad. All right. Who else? What's the next question? SeO2?
Yeah.
SeO2 had how many electrons when you added it up? 18? All right, so when you draw in 18 electrons, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Here, I'll put them here. Now, when you draw them in, you have to check to make sure everybody has 8. You will either, the only time you're going to have more than 8 is if you have like a 5 or a 6, like ASBR 5 in the opening. The only 2 exceptions you have to know for the test or the quiz are which 2 elements? Hydrogen, and what's the other weird one I taught you last week? B, boron. All right, so at like BCl3, boron's only going to have how many electrons on it? 6. Okay, it's going to have less than 8. Those are the only 2 exceptions I've told you all about. Okay, they're the only ones I'm going to give you.
Is that
All right.
gonna be on the quiz tomorrow?
It's possible. They're the only 2 exceptions. It was on the homework on Tuesday. Hydrogen and boron. Hydrogen and boron are the only 2 I told you I'd make you learn. So, when you look at this, you need to learn to count. How many electrons are on O? How many are on Se? As soon as you say there's 6 in your head, you're not done. It has to have how many? 8, because the only 2 exceptions are hydrogen and boron. Okay? So you got to share with this guy. So you got to look and say, okay, I need some electrons from either him or him, and they got to share with this guy. So take 2 off of here and put them over there. Or you could have said, take 2 off of here and put them there. It doesn't matter which O shares, but one of them has to share. Now, this was bent, and it's polar. All right, the last one was who? NO3? So NO3 had NO3 with a -1.
Yeah.
So when you add up the electrons, you had 23, and then you added 1 to get 24, right? N was the central atom. You had 3 O's. You had 2, 4. And again, you wound up with something that looks like this. You said, oh, everybody has 8 except N if you're counting. And then you said, it's not hydrogen, it's not boron. My N cannot have 6. So you said, somebody's got to share, and you put a double bond there, right? And then you all remembered, it's a polyatomic ion, Miss Wall. So you put brackets around it, and you put -1. If you forget, it's a deduction tomorrow. It's the only thing that gets partial credit.
Okay, I was gonna say, it's not the whole question. So
It is not the whole question. Okay? Don't lose points for it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, for the polar and non-polar, how will we know when you want to survive? Because I know that sometimes if you subtract, you'll get polar or you'll get non-polar, but if you just look at the picture, you can get something different. So how would you know when you want to subtract?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? If I ask for bond type, just the bond type, you subtract to get the 4.0 to the 0 scale. But if I ask for the molecule type, you're using the 2 rules, figuring out whether the bonds are all the same, which they are, and number 2, there's no lone pairs, so it's non-polar.
No, she's talking about like when you said you subtracted 0.
The only way you would know that is to do it every time. Because you would have no idea which elements are the same electronegativities. I know because I've done this a long time. You may use your electronegativity sheet tomorrow. I'm not telling you you can't.
So we should subtract them every time.
I just told you I didn't do that to you on the quiz.
Well, I was making sure, because you just said you subtract them every time.
I tell you what, I'm going to go back and redo the quiz just for you.
No.
Just for you.
No. You will not. I refuse. I'm
Going to do it just for Caroline.
No.
All right. Now, if you can't do those at this point, I don't think I'm going to be here after school today. I'll be here tomorrow and Wednesday before the test, though. So come get help. Now, we need to move on to ionic bonding before Miss Wall dies of old age up here. Because we've spent almost 3 days on covalence. Now, Ionic bonding. We need to talk about some ionic structures. Now, ionic bonding is different than covalent bonding. Before the break, we said that ionic bonding was what? Electrons are lost or gained. We also said that it's a bond between positive and negative ions. Now, we can call it a bond between positive and negative ions because we know a positive ion does what?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. It loses electrons,
It's much simpler than what I was thinking.
and a negative ion gains electrons. That's why we can use that definition. And a lot of textbooks prefer to say a bond between positive and negative ions. However, some textbooks like to be a little shorter-winded and say a bond where electrons are lost and gained. So, if Lewis structures show shared electrons, we cannot use Lewis to show ionic bonding. Okay? Because Lewis structures show shared electrons. That's what we've just spent really 3 days working on. Lewis structures show shared electrons. We cannot use Lewis structures to show ionic bonding. So we have to have something else. Ollie, do you need to call home? You already did, okay. You need to sit somewhere at the back where you're not near other people who might get sick from you.
Are you sick?
I'm dying.
Given the amount of time you spent in the bathroom, I am a little concerned about you being near other people.
Yeah, I'm a little. You got Lysol.
I got Lysol wipes.
What am I going to do with that? Eat it?
I can wipe her desk down.
You can't Lysol there.
I don't have any Lysol.
That's not gonna
There
work.
we go.
Let me look. I don't know.
I'm not ringing.
Look, I was already sick for Thanksgiving. I'm not doing it.
Oh.
Oh no, I still ate food.
Oh,
I just had an excuse to stay in my room all the time. See, look, my mom told me not to burn. I had to wear a surgical mask before I go to the bathroom.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. I had flu-like symptoms, but it wasn't.
This is an air freshener and deodorizer, but I don't think it kills any real germs.
It's got some chemical in it.
Yes.
Some chemical.
I mean, it really killed the germs.
I'll get sick. The only one to come here tomorrow.
No, I'd be the one to get sick first.
I only get sick for Lysol.
You may all die from the. It doesn't have any chlorinated solvents in it, though. It's the best I can do. All right. So how are we going to illustrate this? All right. So we're going to use NaCl, which everybody knows is a typical ionic compound. Or we should remember from before the break that this was a metal and a non-metal. So we illustrate these really almost as chemical equations. And I just refer to them as ionic structures because they don't really have any other kind of technical name. So,
It's just like blue back on
you'll feel like you've been to the beach.
No, I feel like I'm
She inhaled it.
It does not.
working overtime.
I'm alive.
Read that much.
Now, when we do this, all right, on the, here, let me move that up a little bit. Okay, on the reactant side. All right, we show where the electrons are originally. Okay. Now, if we're showing where they are originally, this is essentially your dot diagram. Okay, which we all should remember how to draw. So, if we think back to dot diagrams, sodium is in what group?
1.
1. So how many dots would it have?
1.
Okay, we draw one dot on it. Okay, chlorine is in what group?
7.
17. So we draw how many dots?
7.
Okay,
I was gonna say.
that would be correct, Diamond. Is everybody okay with those two things?
Yes.
Okay, that's the left half of the reaction. Now, the right-hand side, okay, on the product side, you show where the electrons go. Okay? Now, the element that lost electrons gets no dots. Okay? The element that lost electrons gets no dot. The element that gains electrons, put the dots. And both get oxidation numbers. It sounds like a lot. I'm just telling you what you got to include. Okay? But it's really not that much. So you're going to put dots on the one that gained, no dots on the one that didn't, and you're going to include oxidation numbers.
Have we already done this?
No, not all the, we've done pieces of it. We're just adding in everything we've done. Okay, so elements that lost the electrons get no dots. Elements that gain the electrons, you're going to put the dots on. And both get oxidation numbers. All right, so when we look at the right-hand side of the equation, all right, what are our two elements? Okay, so we're going to write Na and Cl. All right, so Na is going to do what if it's got one electron? Is it going to lose or is it going to gain? It's going to lose. So am I going to draw dots on it? No. Chlorine is going to do what? It's going to gain. So I'm going to draw the dots on chlorine. Well, chlorine already has how many? All right, and it's going to gain how many more? So I'm going to draw how many dots on it? Okay. Now I need to draw in the oxidation number. Well, Na did what? It lost 1. So how do I show it lost 1? All right, +1. All right, and then chlorine gained 1. So how do I show it gained 1?
So it's not based off like the oxidation numbers we memorized on the periodic table.
What's the oxidation number of group 1? What's the oxidation number of group 17?
They're the same thing.
I know. Just trying to make a connection. All right, so everybody got it? Let's add a little twist to the question. That's kind of easy. We need a little more challenge.
No, we don't.
Sure we do. All right. You know how much I enjoy rattling Caroline or Diamond over there. So, all right. In that case, let's upset Lolly back there, but she's not paying me any mind because she's playing on her phone. All right. So, magnesium has how many dots?
2.
2. All right. So, let's put 2 dots on magnesium. All right. Now, why do I put them together and not separate?
How did you get that?
I don't know.
Because you
You
can.
have to put them in pairs.
Okay. Somebody asked me how I got that, and I don't know why I put them together. How did I know I had 2 dots on magnesium first? Let's do that one first.
This is in group 2.
And group 2 has how many dots?
2.
Okay, so if we look at the periodic table, 1 electron, 2 electrons, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. The same electrons y'all were just counting to do the Lewis structures, right?
Yes.
They still tell outer shell electrons and they tell dots. So magnesium is here. So how many dots would it have?
It has 2.
That's how I got 2, right? Everybody with me on that? Okay.
Yes.
Then I asked why they would be together. And I got an I don't know.
Because it makes more sense, I guess. I don't
They
know.
just because it's
They don't like me.
The S sublevel is what? It's full. So the 3S would be 1 up and 1 down. So the dots would be what? Together, which is why I drew the dots together. Okay, people, there is no it's separate, and I taught it weeks ago. All of these skills keep building, and you got to keep them together.
Is that going to be on the test?
Yeah. You got to be able to draw dot diagram. That stuff is how we draw dot diagrams. So if I draw oxygen, I'm expecting you to be able to draw a dot diagram. What?
Explain it one more time.
So if we want to draw oxygen, okay? So if we want to draw oxygen, I'm just giving you a different element since they're all, do I have to draw and put the dots in the right place, okay? Oxygen would be here, and we would have how many dots? 6. Most of you guys are going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I'm in a good mood, maybe I'll say, okay, cool. But let's just say that we have a benchmark, which we do before Christmas. That's
But that's wrong.
That's wrong.
How is that wrong?
Woo! Okay, people. It's wrong on the exam, too. Yeah, y'all remember those arrow things. I got somebody who remembers the arrows. Woo! Helium up here, remember? Helium. Back over here. 2, S, 2, 2P, 4. Now, you got to draw the arrows that go with that. So 2S has how many lines above it? S has 1 line. You're on the electrons. 2P has how many lines?
3.
Okay, so S has how many arrows above it?
2.
All right, so the 4. How did the 4 go on the lines?
1.
So 3, and then what happens to that 4th one? That's right. Now you got to draw the dots to mirror the arrows. So 2 of them got to share. There you go. That's what your dot diagram looks like.
I'm going get that wrong.
So magnesium is paired because it has 2, and it's an S2 in the whole column, and everybody in the S2 column is paired.
Okay, so
That's not fun.
we only go back to the sub-levels and all that stuff. And we're like doing Ionic.
You stress me out.
Yes. Now, back to where we were.
Oh, no.
So, fluorine has how many dots? Say group 17. So it has 7.
So technically it doesn't matter if you do those.
That is correct.
Yay.
For a lot of them, it won't matter how you do them.
Oh,
Okay, so we drew 7 dots on.
Wait, so for 6 and under, it doesn't matter?
It matters for some of them, yes. For 1, it won't matter. For 7, it won't matter. Everybody in group 2 is going to be paired, so that one's an easy one. 3, 4, 5, and 6 are where you got to worry.
Say I just don't care, and I get the F right, but I do the
Depends on my mood.
I need you to be in a good mood. You like coffee?
Y'all can just start getting stuff right, and then I'll be in a great mood. All right, so magnesium's going to do what?
Give it to fluorine.
It's going to lose how many? It is not going to lose 1.
It's gonna lose.
It's going to lose 2. Fluorine's going to take how many? Okay, so let's deal with that.
Reach a level of common sense.
All right, so we gave fluorine 1, and I got this homeless electron. Now, where is the homeless electron going to go is the question. Now, we're not leaving homeless people, okay? The world has enough homeless people. We're not going to have a homeless electron.
I said throw it away.
No.
There's homeless puppies.
Now, there are. We're not worried about them today either. We're worried about the electrons. Now, we have to add something to the reaction to help that homeless electron. We can either add a magnesium or we can add a fluorine. Now, if we add a magnesium, what is magnesium going to do? It's going to lose 2 more electrons, and now I have how many homeless people? 3. I'm only exacerbating my problem if I add magnesium. So adding magnesium does not solve our problem. But if I add fluorine, fluorine has how many electrons? It has 7, and it's like, oh, I have an open spot, so it can take this little electron right there, and everybody is happy.
So because we had one more, we had to add a whole nother fluorine.
We had that whole nother fluorine, so each of those fluorines can take 1 of those 2 electrons.
But we literally just like came up with this weird thing and nowhere.
Change the problem.
Yes, we did. Now, is the equation balanced? Yeah, we got to balance it too. So, the law of conservation of matter says if you got 2 on the left, you got to have 2 on the right. So we got 2 on the right, we got to have 2 on the left. So we got how many fluorines here? So we got to have 2 there.
Oh my God.
So that means
Really? Y'all can't count?
No, because I can't.
Yes, you can.
We did balance it or not?
Yeah, I just put a 2 right there.
Monday after
We just took it all the way back.
Yeah, like,
Right, all the way back.
I like it. But now there's dots.
And then dots.
Whoa.
I swear to God, it's a +2.
I'm just saying.
Honestly, it's not that bad.
Sometimes I have a hard time remembering my own name, so
What?
don't judge me.
Can you spell it too?
I mean, yeah, but I can't. Don't judge me for this. I'm so used to my name. I don't spell it. So,
That makes sense. I understand that. All right.
Yeah, let's try
So, how many electrons on K?
One.
We have to do that stupid echo cry.
If it doesn't balance, yes. How many O's?
6.
I'll even cheat and do it for you.
thank you.
Now, Very good. We should. We just did this one. Now, K is going to do what?
Give an electron.
He's going to lose one.
Okay, I was thinking. Oh.
All right. O is going to do what?
Game.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, is O happy with 7 electrons?
Yeah.
It better
First of all, he
be.
better be happy because
It
they
should
can't
be.
choose.
Okay, people. Y'all are going to make me look bad in January, and I'm going to be highly perturbed. All right?
I promise you, you had me. I got it.
Okay?
Yeah, until I had to work 2 days.
We cannot have 7 electrons on O. He needs 8. The ICAT rule says everybody gets 8.
We added K.
You got to add a K
Why had a K?
so that K can give an electron to O, and he can have 8.
And then you put 2 in front of the K because that makes no sense. Cool.
Now, for those of you who are in Caroline's camp over here going, we're just making up stuff. If you need a shortcut to figure out how many you need over here, what's the oxidation number on potassium using what we've learned from the periodic table? What's the oxidation number on O?
Negative.
That's the electrons. Oxidation number.
Negative.
2.
If you crisscross and write the formula,
I'm waiting.
you have K2O. You need how many potassiums?
2.
You need how many O's?
1.
You need 1 O. You need 2 Ks. Okay? And I will tell you how many you need to write the equation if you get stuck and you're like, I don't know how many I need. You can figure it out.
So we added 2 Ks because we only had 7.
You only had 7 dots on the O and you got to have 8.
Right.
No atom has 7. They all want how many?
8.
8. Everybody wants 8 except H. Where am I time-wise? I got 6 minutes.
So for like so why do middle testing usually like
Yeah, because they lose their electrons. They gave them away to the other element.
it's just a shortcut. The oxidation number is the same
The what?
on the right as it is on the left,
Yes.
like regardless.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Can we do one more?
We don't have time.
I really need to talk about homework, so
Oh, no, let's do another one.
I need to give directions in homework.
You don't even
We don't
do
have it.
That's
You're really not gonna have
If you give us something, you
No.
gotta check it. Yeah.
Now, I told you before that historically this is, for a lot of people, a hard step. They tend to be the lowest grade. So Angel is handing out a review on the periodic table. Because some of you are struggling to remember bonding from before break.
Yes,
Some of you probably don't even remember that we did the periodic table.
yes.
So Angel is giving you one of the review sheets that go with the periodic table. All right? We will be going over it on Wednesday. So the one that Angel is giving you
Wednesday.
has to be done by Wednesday.
Good.
The one that I'm handing you is homework for tomorrow. Okay?
Out of my brain.
Now, the one I handed you is the one we got to talk about. Now, so the one that says review chapter 5 and has the periodic table on the back is for Wednesday. The one I just handed you, keep out when you talk about it.
Oh.
Keep it out. The one I stopped for, we got to have some directions. All right, part A. Says type of bond. That's self-explanatory, right? I or C. Part B. In number 1, it's very difficult to see this. In the one that says F, to start with, it's got a little dash beside it. It's almost invisible, right? F with a little minus beside that first one. And then the second one is just F. Okay? And number 2, could everybody see that that says 2 plus?
Yes.
Okay? Number 3 should be 2 with a minus or S with a minus. Everybody got that? All right. 4 has a K with a plus and an NA with a plus. 5 and 6 mark out. 5 and 6 are isoelectronic series, and I told you I would not ask you to do those. So part B, 5 and 6 mark out. 6, or part C, you need help with. The first row, out to the side, right, those are dot diagrams. The entire first row are dot diagrams. That's across.
Okay.
Across the road, dot diagrams. The entire second row are what we just did. The entire second row are ionic structures. Okay? So you're going to write Ca plus O yields in that box. Okay? In the second one, you're going to write Na plus Br yields. Those dot diagrams in that top row. Okay? All right, the first two people on the road did this wrong. Look at where my fingers are pointing. That, where my fingers are the dot diagrams. It says an atom of sulfur. Those are the dot diagrams.
We just asked if it was a.
I would have did that wrong.
I know. That's why I looked down and I saw Annette and Angel both did it wrong, which is why I'm trying to point. Okay? Those are the dot diagrams. Okay? Look where my fingers are right now. Those are the ionic structures where it says CaO. That is Ca plus O. Na plus Br. All right? The very bottom row. Those are Lewis structures. The very bottom row, the third row is Lewis structures. Nope, that's on the back side. You're just drawing Lewis structures. Okay? Now, part D. A stands for the central atom. Okay? A equals the central atom. X equals the atoms. And E equals the lone pairs. All right, so for example, in number 2, A is the central atom, X are the number of atoms, E are the lone pairs. So if it says A is the central atom, X is the number of atoms, and E is the lone pairs, what would the geometry be? Don't move.
What is it?
It would be bent.
Wait, so did the lone pairs go on the central atom?
Yes, all this is around the central atom. Look at the back side.
Lone pairs that automatically goes to the central.
Yes, this is all in the central atom. Look on the back side, quickly. Don't all have a grab and go, so hush. E, bond polarity. If I'm talking about bond polarity in E, what am I asking for you to do? Look at the word, bond. What do I want you to do? Subtract 4.0 to 0. Write it down, 4.0 to 0. The word bond, circle it. That's going to be your keyword on the test. And number F, it says molecular polarity. Molecule, what are you going to need to do there?
The polar, non-polar.
Polar, non-polar. So you got to draw the what first? You got to draw the Lewis structure. Everybody got it?
Yeah.
All right.